So in my last video I received a comment from a guy named Life's Guardian, and basically he was making a new base. He planned to move his base, but he had this issue where all his buildings were quite close together and it felt quite crowded and closed in, and he just didn't like the way it feels. So he was asking if I have any tips and stuff for making a base feel a bit more open and less claustrophobic. So that's what today's video is going to be. It's going to be 5 tips that I can give you on how to actually make your base feel open and make it a lot more POW AI friendly, since they have so many pathing issues. So without any further ado, let's get into tip number 1. Tip number 1 is to be very smart with the way you place your POW box. So when it comes to placing down the POW box, obviously it has a radius around it. It has a circle that goes all the way around it. So you need to equate for the fact that not only will the line in front of you be important, but the one that's also behind you that you can't see is important. So what I like to do is, if you place a POW box down but don't build it, you can actually see a dark outline of where the thing will be, where the limits of your base will be. So I like to place it down first, and then I go and look at it and make sure you're in a nice open spot. You need decent resources in the area, such as, for example, ore, wood, stone. If you're feeling really lucky, trying to get some coal in there as well. There's one spot on the map I can think of where you can get ore and coal in the same spot, which is really nice. But what is most important is that you pick an area that is open enough that you can fit your whole radius in, because what I did, it was a mistake I made quite a lot when I was first playing this game, and that was I would place my POW box down against something without really thinking about the fact that half of my radius would then be up the side of a cliff or off the edge of a cliff. So then my POWs would spawn down there, then they would starve and get sick, and made my whole base 10 times less productive than it could have been. So when it comes to POW box placement, oh my god, make sure it's in the middle of where you want to build, just so you can maximize your buildable area and reduce risks of any POWs falling off and having any issues with them starving to death. But let's get on to tip number 2. My second tip will be build on the outside of your buildable area, not in the inside of it. What I was doing before, when I would place my POW box quite weirdly, is I would build practically in the middle of the area. So I'd have these wide spaces behind and in front of my base with usable land, but because my build was right in the middle, it made it feel very closed off on both sides. Whereas if you put a build on the further side, so let's say you put the build on the most southern side of your area, then when you're standing on the northern side of your area, it's going to feel a lot more open, because not only will you have all of the northern side, but you will also have part of the southern side there as well. Obviously, if you build something like walls or anything like that, like big walls around the entirety of your base, then it is going to feel a little bit more closed in. But that much is a given when you're trying to box yourself in, quite literally. So bearing that in mind, when it comes to building, build on the outside and try and keep all of your workstations in the one building. So what I like to do is I'll build a house, I'll put my bed and egg incubators in there, because the outside environment does actually affect egg incubators. Just bear that in mind if you're going to do a hatching base. And then I put all of my crafting benches and storage on the outside of my base, because the POWs will have issues pathing inside, especially if you have larger POWs, and they'll have issues putting stuff in storage if it's inside as well. And when you're in later game and a lot of the higher levels in stuff like kindling and logging and stuff tend to be much larger POWs, it becomes a problem when everything's inside and they can't actually get through your front door. So bear that in mind. And on the topic of POWs that you're going to use at your base, avoid using flyers at all costs. Every experience I have had with having a flyer in my base has been awful. They tend to be glitchy, they tend to have issues putting stuff away, like transporting. I had a beacon which has level 3 transporting, great thing for transporting, apart from the fact that it would pick up 7 items from my I can't remember what it's called, it's like a stable or something, and it would just pick them up and drop them repeatedly and just cycle through it, moving half a centimeter every single time, and it made the most god awful noise. It was not worth it. So just don't use flyers And when it comes to big pals, avoid really big ones. Medium-sized ones, such as Mossanders and Grizzbolts, can work. But if you get like a Bron Cherry, or what else is really, really big? That blue dinosaur one, I can't remember its name off the top of my head. Don't use those. They're really not worth it. Medium and small size should be your limit on sizing for your pals, but flyers and very large ones should just not be in there because they cause pathing issues for the smaller ones, and they tend to just clog up the whole base and make it feel more claustrophobic. My final tip is, I wouldn't even really call it a tip, so it's a little bit more of just like a small piece of advice, but like not a main thing you have to do every single time. If you're building a larger house and you know you're not going to use all of the area inside, whether you're going to be decorating it or whether you're going to have all the crafting stations in there or whatever, put the PAL beds in there, because what I was doing beforehand when I first started building is I would put my house with a bed in it, keep it very small, literally just like a 2x2 with a flat roof and a bed, and then I would build like a barn type structure for the pals to live in, and then I would build like a workshop where I would keep all of my build like all my crafting stations and stuff. And this was all well and good, apart from the fact that having free like structures in the area made it so much harder to, it made the base ugly, basically. It made the base ugly, and it made it harder for the pals to get around because they had to go to so many different places. And what I recommend you do is, when it comes to this, try and keep everything into 1 or 2 buildings, because if you put a building on the north side and the south side of your base and leave the middle wide open, it gives you options to decorate. You can put in lampposts later down the line. There are like football nets, or soccer nets as the Americans call them. There are, I haven't got too far into cosmetics, I haven't really gone too far into like making a base look really nice, but you can do a little trick with foundations where if you look further away from you, so if you have the camera up close, the foundation will be locked to a certain height. If you look further away, the foundation will be able to go up or down. You can actually put it so it's seated like pretty much all in the ground, so it looks like a pavement, like a walkway, like a sidewalk, that's what you call it in America. So you can have like these options to decorate and make your like base feel really nice, and you can do all sorts of great stuff if you leave the center open. It gives you so many options for making your base look cool. But without any further ado, that is all of my tips. I have said everything I can think of right now. I might make an updated version in the future if I get any more tips, but only right now I've got around 150 hours in the game, so I don't really have too much knowledge with these systems yet. Normally when I'm around the 300 hour mark, I tend to start doing guides, but because I'm only at the 150, I'm gonna keep them short. But yes, thank you for watching. If you did enjoy, please like and subscribe, and I shall see you in the next one. Goodbye.